So here we go in the chat bar. I went ahead and posted up rules of discussion, 3 simple rules. 1, be courteous. I shouldn't have to say that considering where we are. But yeah, we are all here in service to the dream. We are all friends and we all have mostly the same goal, just different ways to achieve it. Rule 2, stay on topic. We are here to discuss how we can best serve our society while fostering collaboration. So, we don't want to stray too far off of the topic. And then rule 3, keep it constructive. We are not here to criticize the existing structures of SCA culture. We are here to add something new to it without tearing down what already exists. So, if somebody's got critiques of whatever thing that we're already doing in SCA, this is not really the time and place for that. This is a time and place for us to actually, build on not exactly a new idea, but an idea that, that just hasn't really been, given legs in our SCA culture to the degree that some other ideas have. So with that being said, like I say, I think everybody that is here is, pretty much here to discuss collaboration in SCA, and hopefully that's kind of what brought you here. And so I'm just going to go ahead and remind everyone of what exactly the topic is, what the kind of the essential idea is of this discussion. So just quickly here, I'm just going to go ahead and read through this one time. This will be a roundtable discussion of fostering creative collaboration and the specialization of labor in our society through functional guilds modeled after the medieval production model. The goals will be to provide a framework for effective collaboration among artisans, to provide a satisfying creative outlet other than competition, and to provide an avenue for social camaraderie and learning medieval crafts outside the one-on-one master-apprentice relationship. This may take the form of a collegium-style event with breakout sessions for each class of artisans to confer and collaborate, or possibly the form of enduring functional guilds following a model similar to our College of Heralds. The goal here is not to detract from what is already working well in our society, but to add to it with a new avenue to achieve the society's goals and help retain membership. We hope to attract peers, artisans, and members of our existing guilds, all of whom hold valuable insights. Please add your voice to our discussion. So just to kind of tell folks a little bit about who I am and where I'm coming from, in case there are some among you who don't really, know me personally very well. I am Honorable Lord Wilhelm Mies, and I am an Iris, and I am also the administrator of Firestorm Honey Guild, which is the beekeeping guild in Northern Onstiora. And so that's kind of my background as far as, who I am. But mostly the observation that has been made is that, if you look at medieval society and how things were made and how things were done, there was a whole economy built on these guilds that would collaborate, the guild members, could collaborate to, learn and teach skills, very much like, if you want to become an electrician these days, you go out and do an apprenticeship and you become a journeyman electrician. It's the same thing, that they're still doing in modern times. And what we're not seeing is, where's the functional guilds where people can actually go to learn these skills and develop these things in cooperation with each other, so that one person doesn't have to, create their own paper, make their own ink, and, do their own scribal work, calligraphy and all of this in order to make a book. You can have, different artisans each doing their step, their part in that production process to produce books. And so, the idea here is not that we're all going to get together and make a book. It's that we want to create a framework by which many books can be made. Now, that does bring in a lot of other questions as far as, okay, well, let's say books, for example, you want to make a bunch of books, okay, but that's going to require paper, ink, all kinds of things, the materials, the tools that you would use to make all these things. And then who's going to pay for all that? And then at the end of the thing, when you have a book, or let's say, a stack of books, okay, well, now who owns the books? Because, everybody contributed something to that. So who owns it? What are we going to do with it? Where are we going to store it? And so these are all valid questions that are going to come up, but let's start with, okay, what's the basic framework here? What are we looking to do? And what's the basic framework of how to achieve it? So with that, I'm just going to go ahead and open it up for discussion. Anybody that's got any ideas, just jump right in there, please.
I don't mind kicking things off. I've seen this in practice, though not with a guild. I had never encountered a guild before I came to Anstiora, but we had a group effort in the Outlands to create the step-down garb for the last king and queen before COVID. And as a group effort, that was much more fulfilling for me as an artisan and let me show off specific skills and actually touch silk for the first time, which I had never done as a very a college student without the resources to acquire my own silk. So it let me build great skills, work with a fantastic Laurel and her apprentices, and learn new things, as well as showing off my Kumahima work that I'd been doing on my own.
Right. That's great. That's wonderful. And that gave you the opportunity to work with that Laurel and actually learn skills from that Laurel without having to enter a, lifelong relationship with that Laurel, right?
Exactly. And so you're suggesting that there might be a guild for that we would work together without having to take on an apprenticeship or without having to do all of the crafts that go into clothes making or, as you said, beekeeping.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things I love about this idea is that it does allow artisans to really specialize in something. And, so like one thing that it kind of reminds me of, I spent some time in Okinawa where they have it's sort of like a screen printing technique that they've been using since medieval times called Bingata. And the thing is, it's a multi-step process where you have sort of a starchy resistance that they put into the cloth. And then there's these dyes and they have templates that they make. And so the template just determines where the starchy resist is going to go. And then the resist, of course, stops the dye from bleeding into the other areas. And so by having, matching templates, right? So they're kind of negatives of each other. You can make a multicolor garment with this medieval block print, or not block printing, but screen printing technique. And it's, it's a thing that no one person ever knew how to do all the things, how to make the dye and how to make the starchy resist and how to make the template. They had one person to do each of those things. another person to weave the fabric. And there was never, ever any expectation for one person to take on more than one role in that. And so with the way that we're doing our competitive culture as a solo artist, it's kind of on you. If that stuff doesn't exist, you can't go to the store and buy it, then where are you going to come up with your materials?
Wilhelm?
Yeah.
I don't want to derail the conversation. It's going to sound like I am, but I promise I'm not. But I want to make an observation
Okay.
that I think will feed into the direction you're going on this. I, by happenstance, discovered that I don't know if you've seen the post, but I've designed a loom called an Ibexi loom, and it'll get someone weaving for $4 in materials and about 90 minutes in hand tool time. And if you have an electric saw, you can take that down to 30 minutes. The reason I bring this up is that I kind of accidentally slid into the market of, I was able to make these things for Wiesenfeuer for Lady Edwin, and she could then use them to take new members who were interested in learning weaving, and they could take these looms and learn to weave on them. And that way, if they lost one or decided they didn't like it, we're out a grand total of $4. Big flipping whoop. As opposed to, now, this is based on conversations with multiple people. When I talk to 6 laurels, 5 irises, and the queen, and said, hey, if you were going to get someone started with a loom, starter loom cheap, what's the cheapest you think you could find it? And the lowest number I found was $85. So wow. That tells you what we were competing at. And I found a way. Now the catch to that is that while my design is not historical, all of its component construction are absolutely historical. It uses mortise and tenon construction. It uses basic saw and chisel work. And I just got finished. Actually, part of the reason I'm sitting here is I just got done with an actual shop class where I made one of these things in less than 2 hours, all hand tools, starting with a bare board. Nice. Now, the reason why all this is relevant is if you are going to create an economy, let's be real, you need to start with a demand, and you can't artificially create a demand. The reason why a woodworking guild in theory would make sense for Wiesenfeuer is there is a core group of teachers who are willing to teach and advocate for weaving, creating the demand for occasionally we get together and we knock out 3 or 4 looms. And that keeps our skills sharp, and that keeps the weavers in supply. Now, I'm also part of the Moneyers Guild, and I'm doing it for medallion work, which is a cousin to actual money striking. But again, there is an existing demand for the royalty needs coins for largesse. And we are working on a model. We haven't decided anything. We're working on a model where we will strike or cast coins and sell some of them for fundraisers to get money for proper pewter and so forth. But again, we're following the model of what is their demand for. If you try and artificially manufacture demand, you are creating a stressor that if that stressor could collapse your whole system. And all of a sudden, if one guild just says, or one part of the guild just says, well, we're going to say we need this, and then eventually one day they just burn out and say we're done, you're going to have a domino effect where all the guilds depending on that demand are going to collapse because there's no reason to make stuff, there's no reason to supply the guild that makes stuff, and so forth. So I like your model. I like the idea. I love the idea of art existing outside of competition. I cannot trumpet that enough. But please make sure you don't try and artificially manufacture demand, because artificial demand will vanish. And with that vanishing, you have nothing to propel the rest of the guilds. So that's my soapbox. Thank you.
I think that's an excellent point. And yes, definitely. Thank you for interjecting that. Yeah, that's an excellent point. And so I think, that really needs to be part of this discussion is, can we identify where are those demands that our society actually has for material goods? So, where part of where the idea came from to begin with was, SCA needs stuff to do the things, the pageantry and all that. Somebody's got to make the stuff, right?
Can I say something?
Please do.
All right, let's discuss how we managed to make all those wall hangings and all those cooperative activities that we've done 20, 25 years ago. We had lots of events, lots of people, lots of artisans working together. We didn't have guilds, but we had groups of artisans that worked together. One of the things you were talking about, pageantry, we were just like the effort that you did for the Windheim coronation, produced all sorts of cooperative art, people doing things together. Events that need things can be used as a unification force of your whole community. The artisans, but to do that, somebody said, I don't know who said it, let's have a really blowout coronation, right? Coroneting. And then they talked to people and people said, oh, and they said, I'm getting all dressed up in my brand new outfit and I've made stampings of my costume, and I've done this. And they talked to another person and they said they did that. And we all went out and got red and black thingy bobbies with gold on it and made things. But the point was, we centered our community around an activity that we were doing. Now, in the old days, we centered that around the idea of persona. We had 500 people who did all sorts of things for Cloth of Gold. We had umpteen people for Lion's Tourney. We had people of all different kinds who got together on the theme events. But these big pageantry things brought us together. I mean, for Cloth and Gold, we made a dragon, a 7-foot dragon, and it brought in the dessert thing. We had musicians, we had costumers, we had people who made things to decorate the event. I'm just saying that we need those kinds of events to bring people together, and we need leadership that will stand up and say, we must dance. You don't understand but I'll tell you later. What I'm saying is they say, we need Camelot. That's what Calentier's leadership did for a while. They said, we are the new Camelot. We need Camelot. An ideal of that we do these together, but it needs to be a cooperative effort between the leadership, both official and unofficial, the artisans, and the populace, together. It worked before. There's no reason for it not to work now. People just said, oh, it's too much work, and they'll just do it anyway. And so they stopped promoting it, All right. Okay, I'm finished.
Thank you, Your Grace. I think that was a great contribution to the discussion. And yes, I definitely agree that, events really are the heart and the key to it. And that's where I think that there may be a lot of value in adding an event on the calendar where we can get together, much like we're doing today, only rather than being focused on classes where it's kind of, one directional teaching, it's more kind of going both directions, and we're making something to serve a purpose. And so it's getting those groups of artisans together, like you were talking about, getting people together in a group to make the things that the society needs. And that's pretty much kind of what I'm after there is, let's get back to doing some of that.
I think you're putting the horse before, after the cart before the horse. I think you need a vision of an activity.
Mhm.
Then you need the work gathering to put the artisans together. But you have to have that vision first. Because I know when we just said, oh, we're all going to get together and build a pavilion for the kingdom, it was sort of like the first time we did it, oh, yay, great. And then the next time it was like, I don't feel like it. You know? Because they couldn't see, the pavilion wasn't used where they could be at and admire it. But you know, when we said at Sutan's coronation, we said we need a whole group of new wall hangings. And we got people from over 11 groups to make wall hangings. And we put it all together, and then we did our weird coronating ceremony. I mean, coronating, or whatever correct word. Then they could come and see, I did that wall hanging. No, I did that one, you know. So you had to have, you have to have the Pacific place where people will be together first, you know.
Right.
The general, for the kingdom, well, there are a lot of people who work on kingdom stuff all by themselves at home, you know.
I think it's worth pointing out that Her Grace and I are actually pointing in the same direction, just from slightly different perspectives, and that is the emphasis on the demand needs to be there, and whether that is a big project or something systemic that needs to be addressed. And now, as to how to do that, I'm in a really weird position here. I am not arts and sciences tracked. That being said, I have 3 thistles, one for heraldry, much to the ire of several heralds. But at the same time, I'm not competitive. The only time I ever entered an A&S competition, this was, okay, in context, this was right after Aunt Stewart had made this big announcement about how all of their laurels had calibrated. All their laurels and irises had calibrated, so they'd have very tight controls on the scores. And when I submitted my first and only paper for scoring, I got a 39 and a 12. So
Yeah.
I know, and I know both of the judges. They're really good friends of mine. I thoroughly enjoy walking up to them with the respective score sheets going, so how'd that calibration go? I mean, to this day, 15 years later, I do that to them. But I'm with you in that I personally want to see us get away from the competition model, because competition's a great crucible, but we're not all steel. There are other metals to work with to carry that philosophy or carry that metaphor forward.
I hate competitions. You know?
They have their place. They have their place.
Yes.
That paper, as rough as it was having that paper crucified by 2 of my good friends, that did up my writing game. And that's part of the reason why I'm able to write the material I do for the SCA now. But I want to get away from it, because there are so many people who they get interested, they want to learn art, and probably once they're 6 months in, there's kind of a, what do we do now? And then some idiot goes and says, oh, there's a competition coming up, and I want to fly across the room going, will you shut up? Because, you know, a 6-month rookie is not someone you want to hit with a competition on. I mean, depending on the person, but most of mine. My lady, you have your hand up, and I am not going to do you the dishonor of trying to pronounce that name.
Raya works fine for pronunciation. I will
Thank
say,
you.
as a relative newcomer, that was something very intimidating, to look at the people who were tracked onto the arts, who hated competitions, but saw that as the only way to put themselves out well enough to advance. And so I'd hope we could see other options, whether it's teaching classes or being part of a guild and creating wonderful things to show off for the kingdom, like Duchess Willow suggested, because that would be totally freeing to not have to be under the pressure of writing a paper with documented period sources and just be able to make wonderful things. Just what I think all of us are really here for.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things that I ever did down in the steps, I don't know any of you remember Mistress Brandwin, but she and I, even though she was superior artist than I was, my little group and her little group got into a decorating our tables, sort of count two on each other, you know, no prizes really, just bragging rights. And, but we enjoyed each other's work so much. Of course, then another group came in and they beat both of us, which really upset all of us. But the point is that it wasn't the competition, it was the being creative and making this beautiful display on our tables. And, you know, and I think we should do more just displays for display purposes. I mean, for example, if somebody's doing a banquet versus a feast, then you can have a beautiful display on the food table, right? And it can have everything from spun sugar to, you know, just stamped linen work or something, or little choo-choo trains that run around. I mean, subtleties. The first choo-choo train scene was in a subtlety. But you just have something and the people get together and we all sort of say, what can I bring to this project? You know, and is that what Rhea, how do you say your name?
Rhea or Raya works fine.
Raya, which one's your preferred?
Raya.
Raya, I agree with you 150%, you know, for what you said. And I don't know where you live, but let's get together and do something. Let all of us get together and do something. I know in the old days, it started off little and it got bigger. You know, you start doing it and then you grab somebody else to come in and do it with you.
Then it sounds like there are two different issues that we're debating right now. One of them is how to make it small enough that new people can get in, like for the guild, so that they don't have to have an apprenticeship or don't have to enter a competition. And the other one is how to put enough responsibilities and importance on that group of people to make it relevant in the game still, right?
Yeah, but we'll talk about the important part after we got the something built.
Okay, I'm going to upset the apple cart for a second because I think Raya is going to know exactly where I'm going with this, and I'm willing to bet Day will as well. But I'm looking at some of the other faces, and I'm going to point out, because I literally just talked about this. We all need to stop for a second and take a very hard look at how we want to do our model of interaction, because how this would have gone down 24 months ago and how this has to go down now going forward are two totally different animals. 24 months ago, I was teaching online classes 3 years ago before COVID, and I was getting crap for doing it. And that's okay. We're all traditionalists. There were plenty of people who said, I didn't sign up to the SCA to do online class, so I'm not attending. Okay, fine, nothing personal. Now, all of a sudden, it's all online. That shift, that it is still percolating. There are still those of us in this room who, when we think about how are we going to do something, we have to stop and force ourselves to remember that online is a possibility. And like just today, when I was teaching my newcomers class, someone asked me a question, and it was about online interactions. And I was off on an in-person tangent before I realized, oh crap, she's talking about online. So even, I think that's, I just want to preface what we're about to jump into and say, keep in mind that how do we get groups together? How do we address demand? How do we motivate people? We must force ourselves to see that through the online lens, or this effort's going to peter out, because love it or hate it, we're online and we're here to stay.
Yeah.
Okay, what suggestions do you have?
Personally, I say we identify a demand and then let the demand suck in labor and resources like it should, like an economic model does. The
Okay.
best, most stable current model we have is the College of Scribes, because there is a steady demand for scrolls and there is a handful of artisans that provide it. Right now, I have stumbled across a demand for looms, which is not a huge demand. I'm just using that as an example because I'm familiar with it. I think that as artisans, we should look for a need for our art and then try and create a economic model that fills that need. That's where I would go. Any prep before that is you're building something, you're building a tool and you don't know if the tool is going to fit what you're trying to apply it to, which may work. I'm not saying it's a dead end. It's just a set of dice I really don't want to roll because it could come up snake eyes on us.
Right. No, I think you're right, Ivo. I think that the first step really is to identify where the needs are. Where's the demand?
Yeah, but usually that's all in stuff that somebody's got cornered in the market. I mean, most of the time, I mean, the idea is, it says like they go, well, the kingdom needs tabards. So all the, you know, and they put out the call for tabards and all the artisans stay at home and make tabards. I mean, it's same thing like, yes, I would love to learn how to do woodwork so I could have a replacement chair for all my chairs that burnt up. But the truth is, I don't have anybody here that has the equipment, or, you know, I'll have to go to Wiesenfeuer or someplace to learn how to do that. And it's not convenient for me. And so it becomes difficult, but it's not exciting. You know, it doesn't strike to my soul to do one more thing for the principality or one more thing for the kingdom when I've done years and years of work for the kingdom and I'm bored with them, you know. I mean, they keep losing them. I mean, if they just wore them out, I'd feel better about it. But no, it's like one day they're not there anymore, or they're stuck in some place where somebody decided they were too heavy to carry around. So what are we talking about when you say find a need that the kingdom needs that is not a pillow or a chair or you know?
That's going to be a matter of identify questions that keep coming up. In my case, what prompted the looms was Isaac Bain, Master Isaac Bain, was talking with me and he said, I'd like to try and make 3 or 4 loaner looms. And that immediately went off in my mind as he doesn't need 3 looms and his wife has 12. So it's not like 3 more is a major bump for her. There is a need for her as a teacher. So that keyed me in, and that's what started me down that path. What we need to be attuned into here is where do we see repetitive requests for some sort of artistic supply? And even if it's already being filled, examine how it's being filled. A good example, Wolf, again, out of Wiesenfeuer, she's providing vellum because she professionally, she takes down deer for the state and she's able to collect the skins and produce deer skin vellum. That process it kind of pipes only into the scribes, because obviously vellum really has a very specific set of uses. But part of the reason why that was even done was she identified that, oh wait, everyone's asking about vellum, and I've got this literally endless supply of dead deer rolling through my backyard because I work for the state. Maybe I can get into this. In Wiesenfeuer, like right now, if I were to say something that we're not producing that I think we could produce, I would say, for example, arrows. I'm very active in the archery community. And if you've ever done archery, you know that it's just a matter of time for the arrows start breaking or snapping or whatever. If we were to have an arrow making guild, there would be demand for that product. Now, as it happens, we have other means to provide arrows, and arrows are the type of things that really tend towards a personal decision because they're cut to a certain length, they're spined for a certain weight. But again, that's an existing demand. And I don't care if there's, I mean, our current thrown weapons marshal is the guy who makes arrows. He makes arrows and it's sold mundanely for $50 a shaft in some cases. I know Mateo. I'm good friends with him. I have no trouble muscling in on his market. I'm like, guess what? I'm making arrows too, and I'll sell them for half of what he is. We'll spit at each other, but we're still friends. I have no trouble doing that. I can't speak for anyone else. I don't know what anyone else's situation is, but we need to get down to the nitty-gritty and ask ourselves, what material product do we keep hearing requests for, or I am making, or, you know, is it fabric? Is it wax? I mean, I just found out I'm doing coin making and I've started working with beeswax. And oh my God, where has this been all my life? Beeswax is as hard as plastic when it's cold. It's the best damn casting material in my life. I could have saved myself 7 bottles of aspirin if I'd had this 4 years ago. So if the beekeeping guilds were, for example, to start making a point of collecting a certain amount of purified wax and making it available to the casters, to the coin guild or a metal casting guild, that is a type of supply and demand identifier. I can't speak to anyone else. I'm not in most of your local groups, but it's up to us individually to ask those questions, and don't be afraid to muscle in on someone's territory. No one's got a monopoly. Monopolies are how legitimate economic fights took place in period. I've got that book on my shelf. We're recreating the best part of the Middle Ages if we do that. That's part of the reason why guilds existed, was to control and protect monopolies. So we need to examine the environment around us and say, okay, where is their demand? And what skills can we apply? And I don't care if the demand's being met. Guess what? Competition's good. I'm talking too much. Raya, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Maybe in addition to that, because I can definitely hear where Duchess Willow is coming from with invisible labor and the work that she's doing not being valued despite the effort she's putting in. Our scribes, our coin casters, our arrow makers get a lot more recognition than the people who work with cloth usually do, whether they're making garb for individuals or making items for grand processions, and I wish we could see more of that. Maybe in addition to identifying the demand, it's making sure that recognition is given as well, and the worth is acknowledged. Because I've seen a lot of teachers who do garb who just burn out because they don't feel recognized for it.
We, when we built the Queen's Bards, we put in recognition as part of what we were doing, because at that time, performers and bards got no credit whatsoever, none. They were considered second-class kingdom citizens. And but as we actually put spotlights on what we were doing and gave people an idea of what's good and what's not good, I mean, we didn't tell them that this was good. We just said this was quality piece, or this wasn't a quality piece. We ended up with, you know, the whole SCA structure of awards and et cetera things. And then somebody said, well, you folks aren't needed anymore. And so they basically killed the college and put in what we have now, which is weird. But the point is, slowly but surely, the importance of the performers has gone down, right? And same thing with Middle Eastern dance. We were at a point once where we had people who were beginning to recognize Middle Eastern dancers, and people said, oh, this is you're grandizing your thing. And a lot of people complained that the artisans were getting too much recognition, right? They weren't getting recognition from the laurels and the crown. They were getting recognition from the people. So I'm very hesitant, because my fingers have been burnt more than once, to suggest something other than its own self-reward. You know, if I make art and it's beautiful and I like it, and people come by and go, oh, that's so pretty, or, my goodness, that's historically accurate, something, then I feel vindicated, but I don't want to get into the politics of reinforcement right now. But that's just me. I'm burnt out, So I want something to entertain me right now. So, I mean, I don't care what it is, and I can't do any more wall hangings. My back hurts too much. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. Any more wall
Raya?
hangings. My back hurts too much.
What was that, Iva?
I'm talking too much.
You just answered my question and didn't realize it.
What?
You
What?
mentioned that we need more recognition. Oh, someone needs to, there you go. I don't know how much detail you can pick up on this. There you go. This is an individually sand cast pewter coin from clay. I actually use Sculpey, but the techniques to make this coin date back to Mesopotamia. It's the oldest form of coin production. This coin, I made a run of 17 of them specifically for heralds. It is given from one herald to another. And it on the face, on the outer edge, it says, for the love of the dream. On the back, it says, the crown will always be heard. In the middle, it lists the 3 voice heraldry disciplines: sight, list, and court. They mean nothing. No, the other thing is, this thing is super heavy. This is 2 ounces. When you drop this in someone's palm, it lands like a lead weight. So this lands with authority. You drop this in someone's hand, and this is the type of thing they're going to hang on to. I have gifted out 5 of these things, and of the 5 people I've given them to, one person said he removed his iris scroll from the wall to make room to mount this thing up there. Another one said he put this one in the sack that he normally keeps his laurels medallion in and made a new sack for the laurels medallion. So this has emotional weight to it. But this is a product that can be customized, it can be produced, and it can be given out. And if we want to recognize people for their work, then the community that supports them can band together. And I'll tell you, I have no rank within the College of Heralds. As far as the College of Heralds go, I'm rank and file. I can't do armory to save my life. I'm a leader in the voice community, but I've never been a kingdom officer. But the people that receive this with the same type of emotional prestige and weight that it's been compared to a grant and a peerage award, for God's sake. We have that authority as members of that community to say, this is my thank you to you. There is your demand. And you're absolutely right. If we want to thank someone else for doing this, there's your demand. Let's make largesse, substantial largesse, that we give it to someone else, even if they're brand new or even if they're a peer, and that's going to sit in their pocket as a 2-ounce reminder of how important they were.
Yes, the favors that I have received from other artisans weigh far more heavily on my heart as rewards than a scroll that I might get for a competition. And so I like the idea of having more avenues and environments for artisans to interact and collaborate, as Wilhelm is encouraging us to do, whether that's in a guild or in another environment outside of a competition. That way we can reward each other.
And you're absolutely right, but keep in mind, we've just identified a point of economic demand. If we as a community are willing to pony up a little bit of money and hire out a coin caster or a coin striker or any creation, a woodworker, anyone who can make any largesse, there's your demand.
Bracelets.
Yeah, there you go.
Bangles
Yep.
that I make.
Yep, there you go. That is its example. And I didn't pre-plan this. She said it and it clicked, and that's what I'm bringing to you guys. There is an example of how we can we identify a demand and we create a market with it.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, then Ivo, then, we can get the folks together who can perform the steps required to strike coins, and then we can produce these, customizable coins as a form of recognition for the folks who then in turn participate in our whole collaborative scheme.
I can't speak for the Coin Makers Guild, but based on the conversation I have, you get marriage proposals at a request to do that type of thing. So I think there would be wholehearted enthusiasm, even if it runs into some hurdles, even if it doesn't pan out as we're dreaming about it right now. They're looking for demand. I mean, right now they kind of have it baked in because they want to make largesse for the crown. That's a given, that's long-standing. But a private request to create struck or cast coins as largesse for one of the other guilds to hand out, I can't imagine them saying no to that.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, I think also, you know, to kind of go back and touch on a couple of things that, okay, so you were talking about, Ivo was talking about where to identify those demand points where we get frequent demand. Also, now Duchess Willow mentioned about making tabards, which that's a thing that, you know, we need to do, but you know, it's not necessarily the kingdom that's going to be our customer base, if you will. You know, there are all the individuals who comprise the Society for Creative Anachronism. They all need garb, they all need shoes, these sorts of things. So, you know, if we can get the folks together who are interested in doing and teaching and learning how to work with fabric to make garb that might be suitable for whoever to then purchase from them, that's a wonderful thing. If we get all the people together who want to learn or teach or make shoes, that's a thing that, you know, there's tons of demand for shoes in SCA. Not everybody wants to learn how to make shoes just so that they can have shoes. And I'm one of those who learned how to make shoes just so I could have shoes.
There are also plenty of garb projects that cannot be done by one person in a reasonable amount of time. If someone wants to do late period Florentine or Spanish or Tudor, the set of garb that I did in my barony was an early 12th century Mediterranean, but it was still 6 garments between 2 people. Having a guild or another group that you could call on if you don't have a household, like I don't have a household, would be wonderful, because in over your heads. The tabards for that my barony is just commissioned for our rapier fighters are currently at the house of another member who just had a baby. We can't get them back from her to finish them. I wish we had a guild so that we could manage that communication better.
You know, and largesse doesn't always have to be big or flashy or expensive. I currently live in Ontier. I have found that one of the things that the Crown likes to do when they're giving out an AOA is to also give a simple hood. It's entirely appropriate for most cultures. It's a very simple item to make, but it's a very significant piece of largesse. You know, one of the things that I found with everybody is there's always a need for largesse of some kind. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a coin or a fiber or something. There's also always a need for gift basket items throughout the year. So there is demand there. But I think something that's always missing in any art or craft is the acknowledgement that it doesn't have to be big, and it doesn't have to be flashy, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be made. So when you're talking demand, look at what needs to be made for anybody, whether it's that new person coming in who doesn't have any garb, the person who's been in for 25 years and is still working on their garb, or the person who's been in for, I don't know, however long the SCA has been around, who may have everything, but may cherish that handmade item because they don't have one like it.
And also it's worth remembering that whatever answer we come up with today, tomorrow, next month, or 6 months from now will change. Any economy is going to be dynamic. It's the nature of the human economy. So we've come up with some excellent ideas. I'm not knocking anyone. Please don't read it that way, but I don't care how good it sounds today. Our kids will be laughing at us in 20 years going, they thought this was going to work.
Hey, I'm just tickled pink we're even having the discussion.
Your kids may laugh at you, Ivo. Mine don't do that.
I only have one kid who, by the way, he is 2 inches taller than me now.
Poor child.
She knows me. She knows how tall that really is.
It's been a while.
Not long enough. He just stood up one day and I'm like, oh crap, your eyebrows are above mine. When did this happen?
If I may, as a newcomer, I've only been in during the entire length of COVID. So everything that I've experienced in the SCA has been online. So my experience is vastly different than the majority of the people in the Zoom call. One thing that I have noticed, specifically online, and I'm sure, and I've been reassured that it is different at live events, for instance, but even not, if you're not at a live event every Saturday, every other Saturday, is family-oriented type things to do, if that makes sense. You know, you've got, you know, a lot of, I myself have recruited four more families to my shire with kids. And now we're all just sitting here like, what are we going to have the kids do? You know, I've got from 2 to 9. Another one's got, you know, a 14-year-old to I think a 6-year-old. So it's very much, you know, we need things that are also simple enough that the kids can do, and then they feel included. And so that is a demand that I have seen starting to rise up, is more child-friendly art, because, you know, we think of SCA and we're thinking of, you know, blacksmith and heavy needleworking and, you know, things like that. And that's not all it was. And so maybe
Dave,
something
where are you
more.
located? Which
I'm
group
in
are
the
you in?
Shire, Finnegaff,
Which is
just south of Bringelod and just north of Bjornsburg. South,
Okay.
south, I think it's the southern region is what it's called. I'm very, very loose with my terms.
yeah, no, I
So
get it. I'm up in
sounds-
Ontario now. So my suggestion to you is, I know of a couple of Minister of Arts and Sciences, one out of Oklahoma City in particular, Murin, who is the North Keep MOS, but she is putting together kits for kids. Things that they can pick up and take home and do. And she has a pair of twins who are 4, 5, something like that. And they help her put the kits together so she can try them out on them for the smaller ones.
Oh.
I know that they have talked about doing something specifically for the teenagers for years, because that seems to be that age where we tend to lose a lot of folks.
Yeah.
You know, they're too old to do the kid stuff and too young to do the adult stuff in some cases. So that is a need that needs to be filled. I know in North Keep, Francois is actively working to work with the teenagers and the guild, or not necessarily the guild, I don't know that they have a guild, but they're working with the teenagers specifically to come up with activities and ideas that would be good for them specifically. So if you need additional resources, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we will
Yeah, I
definitely
was
help
just
hook you up.
mentioning, as you know, we were talking about find a demand. Let's find a demand to try to fill it. That is a rising demand in my area, and I'm sure it is everywhere else, because a lot of things changed when we went virtual. You know,
Yes.
that, you know,
Very
it
much
changed
so.
quite a bit based on what I've been told. And I remember I'm basing on things that I've only been told and what I've experienced so far. And so that is the demand to be possibly filled, is what can we bring for our youth? Because I was talking to Master Harold, and he was telling me, you know, we do lose, like you said, once they hit that kind of late teenage phase, they're like, what can I do? You know, I can't do a lot of this stuff because it's adult rated, but all the child stuff, I'm like, obviously I'm not going to go into youth combat. I'll kill a kid.
Right. Or
So
the kids' crafts are boring.
they're
Yeah.
boring because they're too simple. And so that's just something to possibly try to figure out in more depth.
Okay.
Um,
One of the your point is absolutely valid, and I agree with you 100%. One of the hurdles that we are going to be running into answering that for the next about 12 months is the safety restrictions that keep coming up involving children with the COVID situation. Because I've watched this conversation come up at least 6 times in the past year, and it never makes it past the theoretical stage because half of the parents can't take their kids to events for various legitimate safety reasons, and the other half, the kids are just old enough that they're in school, and so you have lots of exposure vectors, and just young enough they can't get the vaccine. Until that sorts out more, and I'm just saying this so you don't get discouraged, but until that sorts out more, oh, that answer is going to be a minefield.
Mhm.
That being said, I dropped a message in the chat for you. There is a lady out of Wiesenfeuer named Leodin of Patron Or. This woman's entire life is dedicated children's activities, and she would light up like a Christmas tree if you reached out to her and talked to her about ideas and activities for kids. Like, I'm not joking. If you IM'd her, sit down and bring coffee. She'll talk for 2 hours solid. As
Is she on Facebook or?
yes, Heather Harrison. Heather Harrison. Her by name or her sub name is Leodin of Patron Or I think it's just Leodin Patron Or is just OR.
Oh, there she is.
Yep. You send her a friend request, you tell her you're interested in kids activities, and you will become her new best friend.
That'd be great. I was just, like I said, y'all were looking for demand. That's been a rising demand, but
Yeah.
I do understand about the restrictions that just
Yep,
keep
yep.
fluctuating and changing.
And you're right. That is a demand, and it's one that maybe the ANS community, I don't know how. I'm not saying that we can't. It's just the answer that doesn't immediately ring with me. But I don't know. Do any of us think there's an ANS product that we could engage in that would engage kids or create an environment for kids, or just something to make for the kids to keep them out of adult hair?
Hobby horses and scopperals.
I was thinking more manacles and gags, but
That's
Now,
just,
I have been known to make a shrew's fiddle as well.
one thing that I enjoyed, and it was done at the very, very beginning of lockdown, and it was SCA wide, was like was scavenger type hunt thing. I don't know if any of y'all participated in that, but it was massive. And I know that, we had a blast and my children had a blast, and it was very much all around fun. And I was really hoping there would be another one, and there just hasn't since. But that was a lot of fun. Our whole shire loved it. I know the baronies around us were both involved. That was a blast for those of you who missed it. And that was really fun because it got you doing SCA things without having to leave your house. But the way like my seneschal explained it, she was like, man, it's like having a scavenger hunt at SCA from the comfort of my couch. And I learned actually more from that scavenger hunt and researching what all these things were, and learned more things that way than I have from a lot of the online classes.
I hesitate to say this just because this could derail the conversation, but back in the day, and I'm legitimately saying that, 25 years ago, we had some really active players who they were telling this story from back when they were young. So we're now in the early days of of Ansteora, but there were quests that were done, and these were kind of part scavenger hunt, but they were also literally part meditation. I watched one very senior member tell someone, I want you to go find every knight on site, and I want you to go ask them this question. I want you to write down their answer. Now, at the time in the moment, it was this obviously busy work meant to keep this overactive young buck busy. But by the time he was done tracking down every white belt on site, it was a North Keep event. He had discovered a lot about himself, including some of the unflattering stuff he needed to work on. And they used to tell stories about how households and groups of people would get together, and these quests were far more structured, and they had gifts, and sometimes you would be given something to take with you. It's kind of nebulous. I've never been part of something that formal, but I don't know, the idea of a group of artisans getting together to create the physical material that could fuel someone on a quest. And keep in mind, these quests are not just fun. They were my reason for bringing them up was this was a journey of discovering the SCA around you, and it was a journey of personal discovery. And it was not flattering discovery. This is your chance to figure out why some people don't like you, kind of stuff. And I'm saying that as someone who's had that discussion the hard way and had to grow up hard, really fast in some environments. But these journeys, I mean, we used to joke that we were the world's largest all-volunteer self-help organization, and we still have some vestiges of that. Kaylee's nodding, but she was one of the people that knocked me upside the head with a not proverbial frying pan one time. But
I forgot about that.
I didn't. But if we want, like I said, this is really fragile to what we're talking about. But if we want to put an ANS spin on that, and we want to see if that's something the ANS community wants to look at, I don't know. I'm not inclined to, but I'm not adverse enough to it to not mention it. I think there's something to be said for the days where we took the losers and helped them find themselves. I was one of them. I'll just say this up front. When I first joined, I was one of the people they talked about getting rid of. And it's because people helped me figure out what was wrong with myself that I'm still here. Maybe there's an ANS metric for that. I don't know. I just kind of put that out there and see who does what with it. I won't take it personally if you all think I'm nuts.
Hey, I love the idea of a quest, and I don't think it has to be, like a self-help kind of a thing, but I think it would be an awesome thing and a fun thing. I mean, it could be a fun thing. It could be more, introspective. But I think
it was always tailored to the individual regardless.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to do it. Lots of ways to do it. I think that is a little bit tangential to the core of why we're here today. But definitely sounds like a fun idea. I'm in. No, I like the idea of, I'm sorry, Raya. Oh, go right ahead.
I'm talking to my cat. I'm sorry.
Oh. Yeah, no, I was just thinking, I like the idea of getting together all the folks who are, interested in doing any kind of fiber and needle work, and be able to produce garb, getting anybody together who does, leather working, what have you, to make shoes that people can then, buy and use. And I don't know if we want to, say do some of these as largesse and donate them to the baronies, kingdom, whatever, or do we want to just do these as, say, stock for a booth on Merchant Row that the guild can then sell these things and raise money to perpetuate the guild? I think that would be up to the individual guild that is producing that item or line of items for them to decide what they want to do with the things they're producing, how to fill the demands that are there. But I mean, I think that, yeah, people will pay good money for, medieval or at least SCA appropriate footwear. And yet there are a lot of, we have a lot of newcomers. Some of them are younger folks. Some of them are folks in college who have a lot of bills and not a lot of means. And so, if they can get some donated footwear, that could be a game changer for someone.
You mentioned the younger generation. One of the pet peeves I have are cell phone covers. Maybe if we were able to cobble together the right resources, we could make a batch of little fake book cell phone covers. And that's several skill sets right there. That's the type of thing that different artisans, woodworking, leatherworking, papercraft could team up on, make a batch of those. And that'd be an excellent gift to give to a newcomer because they can put their phone in there and they're not separated from their phone.
It'd be easy to make it look like a girdle book.
Yeah, I have a pattern for a girdle book that holds a phone and a journal that you can make in half an hour to an hour.
I'm gonna need to get that from you.
I'll message you on Facebook Day.
I teach 3 different classes on girdle book making, so I think we got the starts of a very subversive guild right here.
Love it. Getting something put together already.
By the way, if you're wearing your phone in incapacity, make sure to turn off all voice commands. There was a very unflattering video made in the presence of someone who used the wrong verbiage near their phone, and it recorded an inopportune moment.
Sorry. Knowing some of my friends, I can only imagine.
So then I think my next question would be, if we don't already have a guild, how could we promote some more of that collaboration in our local group? Is it something that we could host a get together at an event, or would there be a way to start communication other than just posting on Discord, like, where are my seamstresses at?
Food. It's called bribery. It works wonders for bringing people together. Chocolate, coffee, not necessarily in that order. Joking aside, yeah, that's one of those questions that I will tell you is going to, the answer is different now than it was 2 years ago, because 2 years ago I would have said host a party, get everyone under one roof and talk, but that's not feasible right now. So getting people together, online would absolutely be my first choice. But the moment you get we're all in the same zip code situation, break out the fudge, the chocolate, and the coffee. I'm not joking. Get them as close together as you can and get them talking.
Mhm. Well, I think that maybe brings us back around to one of the ideas put forward was, once we get back to being able to do in-person events again, then would there be interest in doing sort of a collegium-style event where the idea is not so much to teach a class as to get organized, right? To kind of get some of these collaborative things organized so that we can then turn around and get them off the ground.
I'd say so. I'm still a relative newcomer to the kingdom, so I don't even know who to ask in a lot of cases. I'd love to meet all the people who do the things.
Yeah, after the last 12 months, most of us don't know who to ask either. There's a question of who's still standing.
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah. Our shire just had a huge loss, so I feel that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We talked about the COVID thing, and everybody talks about going back to the way things were. It's not going to happen. Between the COVID issues, between the changes in the society itself, between the changes in how we handle things, we have a new normal, and I don't think we've settled on it yet. So, I hear a lot of, well, when we get back to, well, we're not going to get back to completely. We're going to be able to resume in-person events eventually, hopefully. But I think there's always going to be that fear back there. And, the way things are going, there is no end to the pandemic yet. They're already tracking another 2 or 3 variants of the COVID thing. And there's a lot of grumbling about the direction the SCA is going now. So I think we have to be very careful when we start talking about where we're going, where we've been, and where we want to go. So that's something definitely to keep in mind. You know, nothing has brought that home more than moving. Because I spent the first 24 years of my life in North Keep, or first 24 persona years in North Keep. And moving up here to Ontier, the culture shock in the SCA is a real thing. And I'm sure the folks who've moved into Onsteora can back me up on that, because they're coming from other places where they have, you know, mores and traditions and things, the way they do things that are completely different from Onsteora. Because let's face it, particularly northern Onsteora is unique. We'll just call it unique. And I can say that because I've been there. You know, and I just saw somebody post that they moved to Onsteora from Ontier, so we traded places apparently. But it's a very different culture up here. You know, to talk about, to kind of bring in a retention thing. You know, in Onsteora, if you see a new person, typically somebody will go talk to them within a certain amount of time, you know, usually within the first 30 minutes that they're sitting there by themselves and nobody knows them. One of the things I found up here is you have to go talk to people. They don't come and see, you know, welcome you to the new barony if they don't know you. They assume, particularly if you're not dressed as a newcomer, if you have the skills to make decent garb or you have garb already, they assume that you're just either visiting or from some other place, and they don't come talk to you. And I think that that is an important thing as we move forward, particularly in the virtual culture, because I don't see us going back, eliminating the virtual aspect of this at all. But that's something to be cognizant of as we move forward, is that it is harder to make those connections while you're sitting behind a computer. And without those connections, and without figuring out a way like you're working on here to bring people together, you're going to lose a good portion of the population, whether that's an artisan, whether that's good or bad, whatever. But I think it's important to keep in the back of everybody's mind is that the culture has to shift, it has to change.
She's absolutely, I was gonna say, she's absolutely right. You asked a valid question, and the trouble is that you are every bit as well equipped to answer it in Onsteora as those of us who've been here for over half our lives. Literally the people who, if you had asked me a year ago, or 2 years ago, how would I start a guild? Literally the 5 people in the north I would say you need to talk to, 3 of them don't play, 1 is MIA, and 1 died of a heart attack, all in the last year. So I don't mean to be grim, but that's where we are. Like literally the entire society's been turned on its head. Every norm we grew up with is gone. So your idea is good as mine. Come up with something. I don't care how wacky it is. I've got your back. We'll swim or drown together, but that's where we are with this.
Hey, as long as Ivo's got my back, I'm feeling good.
In that case, I love Wilhelm's idea. We can't really even make temporary plans forward until we know what the ground looks like. And that means if we can get together, when we can get together, finding out as much as we can. I love the idea of a collegium, even if it ends up virtual, where people who participate in different arts get a chance to communicate with each other.
And something I want to tap into Wiesenfeuer's experience, something we could do. Wiesenfeuer does an open ANS night every Thursday, where it's an open chat room like this, but what they encourage you to do is if you can, set your camera up over or around what you're doing. And it's very common for me to take my phone out. I've got a little rolling dolly that I use for my YouTube channel, but I'll just set up on my workbench. And you pretty much have this glorious shot of the back of my head while I'm sitting there working on something. But if you look at the room, there's 3 or 4 of us doing this. You kind of get a feel for, oh, wait, she's weaving. He's working on, I'm usually working in right now my metal casting prep for my master's. And usually Isaac is working on some detail work with his calligraphy. Maybe we should all start looking at, maybe once or twice a month we can all get together and do a room like this and just kind of get used to what do each of us do. I mean, if nothing else, I can honestly say Wilhelm does this, this, and this. I have no interest in any of it. None of it really is relevant to me, but it still looks cool. I've spent time hanging out with him, and if we want to start groundwork, let's start there. Let's figure out who here has the camera equipment to do that. Who here has the know-how to get on a room? Maybe we can help educate each other and bring each other up to speed, and then build from there. Because we literally are building from the ground up. Beyond that, it's guesswork. And we, for example, we just had 2 people had to bow out because of technical issues.
Yeah.
That's something we're going to run into.
And on top of that, that also gives you the opportunity if somebody says, hey, I need some largesse for something. Oh, hey, so-and-so over there does blah. Why don't you reach out to them and see if they have the bandwidth to be able to do it? Not like that's how I got caught or anything.
It would be interesting to see a larger craft night than just the baronial level. We have got 3 local groups in DFW, but I can't go to ANS night in every one, so I don't get to meet
What do you
everyone.
do on Thursday nights?
Right now, nothing.
What about everyone else? Seriously, what do you all do on Thursday nights?
Let's do
Uh,
this.
Thursday nights. I don't know. As long as it's not the
I'm good to go on Thursday nights because I sit and read a book.
yeah, no, I think I'm good to go as well.
All right, I am dead serious. I know the Minister of Arts and Sciences for Wiesenfeuer. She would welcome you with open arms. Come hang out with us. Go to the Wiesenfeuer, Barony of Wiesenfeuer Facebook group, ask to join. 3/4 of our members on that group are not local, so you would not be treading on any unwelcome ground there. And ask to talk to the Minister of Arts and Sciences. She posts a reminder. Come hang out with us. It's a Google Hangout. It's through the officer account, so it's unlimited time. Come chat with us. It's arts and sciences. Set up your camera in your shop while you're working, or beekeeping. Put your bees on camera. I'm going to be out. I'm going to be out in the shop with the heater on, probably working on Coin Masters again. Day, what do you do?
I do fiber. I spin on a spinning wheel. I spin with drop spindles. I am in the process of trying to card through 3 whole sheep. Somebody sheared 3 sheep, and I'm having to card that, and I've got to do all that. So that'll be fun.
Set up your chair in front of your computer, or set up your phone. And I usually use earbuds in this so that I don't have a microphone blaring, but pull that out and weave. Well, I mean, if you don't want to do anything, half of us sit there and talk anyway and just gab. It's social hour. It's meant to be. As Edwin said, part of this was to keep the community together. But come hang
I
out.
love that.
Come seriously. Every Thursday at 7 is when it gets going. And it's on the Wiesenfeuer Facebook group. Come hang out. I'm serious. Edwin will be doing cartwheels if you guys all show up. Possibly literally.
I just started a stitch and bitch for my shire because it had gone dark, is what I told the group. I was like, everybody's gone dark. And I get it, we're zoomed out, but if you want to come and just, talk about how your chicken decided that it was going to roost in a tree, like, I don't care, come, just come talk, hang out with some other adults that aren't in your house and talk about whatever. And we do those every other Sunday night. So tomorrow, actually, we're having another one. So it's like being in the presence of people without having to be in the presence of people.
Yeah. This, if anyone looks at, and I'm saying this because it offers important historical context, the Europe that came out of the Black Plague, the plague, the Black Death, was not the same Europe that went into it. Society radically changed. And that is exactly what we are experiencing right now. We are experiencing loss. We are experiencing a reshaping of the population. We are experiencing a shifting of responsibilities, and we are seeing a radical change in the base rules of how we interact. So the last thing you want to ask is, well, how did we used to do this? Guess what? How we used to do it is how we got here in the first place. So that's off the table.
Yep.
Well,
Is there a Kingdom ANS group in Facebook?
there's, well, now there's an Artisans of Anstiora. Is that what you mean? Or
There's an
Whatever.
Irish group as well. but
I'm
they're
not an Irish,
active.
so I'm not going to be poaching. I'm not going to be sneaking in there. You guys are all welcome to it. No judgment, but
The
Ticket to
Irish
Ride
channel
is
doesn't
not.
do anything. I try to get something going for an event or online and nothing happened. So
Okay.
it's kind of dead, but
And
I was
I
gonna
don't want
say-
to create a new one. I'm just curious
I
what
know
exists.
our Shire has an arts and science Facebook page, but I don't know about kingdom level.
Okay,
it'd be
then
nice.
if we, the last thing I want to do is create something that's not there that almost always peters out, and that's me being hyper cautious. But for right now, for just by happenstance, the card I
Every-
want to play is let's come play at the Wiesenfeuer group and see where it goes from there.
I was gonna
because
say
that's
everything
all.
ebb and flows.
Yeah. You know, Edwin would love having you all to come hang out. Like I said, Thursday night. Look me up on Facebook if you have any trouble reaching the Wiesenfeuer page. I'm on Facebook. My email is on the ticker on the bottom of the screen. Feel free to email me. I'm happy to play matchmaker for this type of stuff. That's kind of what I do as the Baronial Herald here.
You said their arts and science page or their main barony page has the
Go to the main barony page. She posts there. We have a arts and sciences page, but it's long story. We have several of those pages floating around. Again, long story. No, the main baronial page just asked to join, and if it requires approval, one of us will approve you. Hang on.
well, I think we have a couple of people who have been just kind of patiently listening, haven't been talking much. Do you guys have any thoughts? Anything you'd like to contribute?
Understandable.
I was gonna say until COVID, most of my arts and science has been around food, cooking, which can't do at the moment. Sucks. Picking up other things, but it'd be nice to talk to people.
Yeah.
Cody, you can play too much fun pitches.
Yeah, I'm deliberately biting my tongue at this point because I will talk to a tree given the opportunity. And I know that.
You ain't lying.
I have a question. Is there a I know there had been one in the work to be listed on the Kingdom ANS website. I don't know if you've heard of it, where it's you don't have to be a Laurel or a master, but they've been putting in information of like a list of who you are, where you're located, and what you can teach. I've lost that webpage. Does anybody have the link or
Which-
how to find it?
Which version from which decade? Because that's a perpetual
No,
ongoing project.
It is
that-
one that was made literally at roundtable,
Okay,
and it is on the main Kingdom and Stiora website. That's all I remember.
I have just watched so many of those come and go, and they're outdated the moment they're filled out. Nothing against the people making them, but that is such a hard list to maintain.
So, and it was you could add it yourself type situation.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I
Because I think that could
This is-
possibly help our situation of trying to get people involved.
this is
No.
unfortunately just me being jaded. There's one in every group. I wear that hat.
Well, so now there was an idea that was put forward about, again, having kind of a collegium type event. Is there some reason we couldn't necessarily do that virtually, as far as, insofar as at least getting organized and figuring out who to talk to, who, if you want to make shoes, if you want to make books, if you want to make looms, okay, well, at this point, like I was kind of pointing out, it's okay, well, at this point, who do I even, talk to about that? Who else is wanting to get in on this, type of thing? So the idea was folks could show up to the event and just sort of sort themselves into, whatever breakout room they want to go get in on. But we can do the same thing. Zoom has breakout sessions.
How would you work that with people who want to be in multiple rooms, who have multiple interests?
You
I
put
don't know,
on your
you might-
nice,
You might have to make a choice.
yeah.
I tell you what I did, and I cheated. I kind of at round table. I had 3 devices running, and I had my headset on, and then under one ear I had an earbud, and then I would have like this one halfway off, and I had my other device like on speaker, and I had 1, 2, 3 going, and it was hard.
What medication
somehow
were
I
you
still-
not taking that morning?
I don't know. But one of those was also the heraldry warranting class, and I still passed that exam. So I did something right, guys.
Okay, Wilhelm, I'm gonna give a pushback here, and this is not me dismissing the idea.
Okay.
This is me playing the cautious card. I'll just say this up front. Of all the resources we have right now, human energy is the most precious, and it's the one that we have the least of. We are the most prone to burnout right now, partially
True.
from lack of interaction, but also because none of us has any idea what's around the corner. Could be another COVID strain, could be another local law, who knows? I absolutely agree with you. I would love to see a collegium. I would much rather see us strengthen our existing ties between the people in this room first, and
Okay.
see if that remains sound 3 months from now. I will be a whole lot more optimistic about visiting the idea of hosting some sort of a collegium. I love the idea of a collegium. This is not me blowing it off.
Mhm.
I have just seen too many conversations exactly like this, and a lot of them, life catches up with a vengeance 3 days after we leave this chat. And
How many
I want to,
How many people are going to Kingdom ANS?
is it virtual?
No.
You won't know until Tuesday.
Yeah, until the 8th. Is it Tuesday?
Yeah.
Tuesday the 8th. They
Tuesday.
will be announcing whether or not that will have to be switched to virtual, or will be allowed to be in person, because they're playing it as a week by week COVID case count
If it
situation.
is virtual, I will probably attend. At this particular moment, it is not in the cards logistically for an in-person.
I was going to say, I'm not going in person. Again, the whole food thing. But even if it were in person and If it weren't for COVID, I'd be there, but I'm not going with COVID, flat out.
That's understandable. That's,
But I was gonna say, if we ever can get to an event, we could, like, biggest pavilion, have people sit around and do their thing.
I know that Bjornsburg is having their event at the end of this month. I do believe they're, I don't know the proper terminology in stating their new Baron and Baroness.
investing.
In-
investing.
Investing. There, and that will be happening on the 25th, provided they don't have to go virtual. That will hopefully be my first event, but I do plan on going to that. I don't know if anybody else is, I don't know where you all are, but I feel like sometimes I'm the most southern person at every single one of these events.
Given the geography, I've heard some of us say the odds of getting us all in the same zip code, let alone the same event space in the next 6 months is nil.
Well, that's
Twice
what
a year.
happens when you leave in
Twice a year.
Anstiora. That's what happens when you live in Anstiora,
Well,
right?
Wilhelm and I are both Wiesenfeuer, and I don't think we've laid eyes on each other in person in 2 years at this point, 2.5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm north of Austin and Taylor and the disputed land, so
Yeah,
I can't get to Austin.
Yeah,
Ringwald.
you're not gonna be able to logistically make it as far north as I could make it south. Day, you said you were Steps or no, you were the Binnengas,
Rhea.
excuse me.
Rhea
And
Steps.
Rhea with Steps. Let's face it, guys, we're the four corners of nowhere. It's and interesting point, no. Historically, there were guilds that operated in remote situations, and they established encrypted letter writing as a way to communicate and coordinate across cities. At the time, those letters were high tech. They were using forms of encryption, no mathematical encryption, no one ever used before. We're doing the same thing here. We're embracing a new situation, new technology to meet a new challenge. Maybe we need to start virtual and see what happens. I mean, let's face it, guys, we all may spend 2 meetings together and some of us decide we don't like the rest of you. I would sooner sort that out now than have us in a situation where we've invested $100 in gas to come to that realization.
No, I vote.
Ask.
What?
Day, you were fairly new, correct?
Say again?
Yes.
Emma.
Day, are you Master of Arts and Sciences for your Shire?
Yes.
Has this been a difficult position for you?
Yes.
Okay, that's not the answer I was hoping for. but-
So, and you know, I love my Southern Regional. Percival has been amazing, and he has been like my little cheerleader. But our Minister of Arts and Science got restationed to Colorado, and it just left. It was her, and she was also our web minister and our hospitaler, and then our seneschal. All like, and there was one other position that they filled. All those 5 positions, because they all lived together, they all got restationed, and so suddenly like half of our officer positions were like, and I
Talk
was
about
not
sink or
foolish enough.
swim.
Yeah, we've definitely sink or swim, and we installed very quickly. And I went ahead and I was like, you know what, I'm good at all the arts and crafts things, and I want to learn everything anyways. And what better way than to be in the officer position? Because now I have a valid excuse to learn the things.
Wiesenfeuer's Baron and Baroness had been in seat less than 6 months when the Baron was snap deployed to another state for
my
2
gosh.
years.
Oh man.
Yeah, I feel your pain.
It was crazy. And then they were like, are you sure you want to do this? You know, you've only been here for like 8 months. And I was like, I mean, what else can I do? I can't fight right now because COVID. So that like part of the SCA was not open to me.
I'm going to derail this for just a second. Are you friends with other more tenured ANS members within the society? Do you have people you can reach out to?
He's a Laurel. So would that be Lord?
Master.
Master. Oh, that explains why he prefers Mistari Harold or Bassi. And his partner, Lady Oksana, they've snapped me up into an apprenticeship. I was informed of this.
If
Yeah, that happens occasionally.
I'm gonna put my card on the table here. I'm not the ANS track, but I am a career herald, which means I probably know more about the bureaucracy side of the SCA than a healthy person should. if you have
Hence the
any
burnout.
questions, I'm sorry.
Hence the burnout.
Yeah, if you, Dave, if you run into any situations as an officer where you want some outside perspective or want to know what paperwork to fill out or where something's sitting on the website, please feel free to reach out to me. The worst I'm going to say is I don't know either, but I was there when half this stuff was written for the web, so I think I can find most of it.
And don't believe a word he says.
Believe everything she says, just believe that she's going to use it when she picks up the frying pan.
Is that one of those things that she's never going to live down, or that you're never going to live down?
Never gonna live it down.
He's
I'm never
gonna
gonna-
live it down.
How often is someone going to get threatened with a cast iron skillet and forget it? She was legitimately pissed at me. It was what was it, right before Feast at North Keeps, it was Castellan. And
Yeah.
I said something to you, and I think you misheard it, but I was also being cheeky anyway. The next thing I know, she comes out of the kitchen squared up like a German tank on overdrive, and she is wheeling that frying pan. And I didn't think she'd do it. And I'm like, oh, give me a, didn't even get the next word out. Next thing I was, thunk, and she clocked me right upside the head. Like, okay, never mind.
You were fighting and you didn't drink anything and you were being a shit is what was happening.
I was, all right, I was fine, but I told her to buzz off, which were not the right words. And yeah, she clocked me one. I took my helmet off before that. You could have gotten me before I took the helmet off, just saying.
Would it have had such an impact?
Well, no, of course not.
Well, maybe because the metal on metal sound may have hurt his eardrums even more.
Oh no,
Well,
it's
what-
he
you know,
needed
what-
the good shot up the head. Of course,
The-
I've also watched him, take a hit because he hadn't been drinking and he was overheated and land on his back because it knocked him.
That
straight-
happened once. All right, no, the second time I rolled, I was fine.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, as you can tell, we have a lot of history. Again,
see
I've
this.
been playing since 1996, and I was 19 when I started playing.
And I was
We'll get a
18
lot
when I
of-
started playing in 97.
You
Yep.
get a lot of no shit there I was stories. Those
Yeah.
are the best.
There are some that,
Yeah.
For
Those are-
public consumption, so-
Those are the kind of stories I want to hear to stitch and bitch. That's what I want to hear.
tell you what, come hang out at a V's and Foyer ANS meeting and I'll share some of them because that's not a recorded venue. I
When
hope I
Alicia
didn't
attacked
derail
the
your,
2 Chucks at Penzic during the war.
oh
You
Jesus.
did,
Mary.
this is being
I was
recorded.
marshaling that one. That was fun.
Well, so maybe we should keep it on on topic.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah, the
Rohan.
moment the two Chucks get involved, we've officially gone too far.
Well, I mean, I know we're not really quite out of time yet, and I don't intend to cut it off short. But it's been a great discussion so far. This has gone really well. We haven't had anybody, screaming at us that we're destroying the SCA that we all know and love. So that's great.
We also don't have a lot of the old guard on here.
Stop.
Well, true. Well, I mean,
That's not always a
Willow
bad
is
thing.
here, but she's all on board with it. So
Yeah.
Let's also, and I will say this because I am probably the most guilty party in this. We are eventually going to run into ideas that other members in this particular circle hate, not dislike, hate. Let's all come to a gentleman's agreement that we can all just agree that some of us will walk away, blow off some steam and come back a few days later with no hard feelings. So if any of you see me turn, if any of you see me turn scarlet red, log off and not see me for a while, that's what just happened. Nothing personal. And I will come back when I am not bothered by whatever it is we're doing.
right. Sounds good to me.
I need to go find a link for court. There's court.
It is on the page that had the link to the classes. It's like up at Gates and Court. It should be there.
Yeah.
Court is going to be streamed to YouTube and Facebook. And it is supposed to start at 5. I noticed that Jahan and Perrin have already run away to get ready for it. So
Yes, Sasha, I agree. I can mute my voice as well. My face, however.
yeah, mine's a dead giveaway.
I can mute the mic, but the bottom line is that I can say more with my eyes open than most people can with pencil, paper, and 2 hours prep time. And that's not said as an apology. You can ask Kaylee. There have been times where the wrong person said the wrong thing near me, and we set the record straight before I ever got my mouth open.
Mhm.
She's watched me light into a few people for inappropriate comments to, well, yes, just about anyone.
I would say we've tag teamed a few of those.
Yeah, those were good days.
Well,
I don't know.
is
We're just old.
it Wilhelm? Wilhelm?
Yes.
Wilhelm. You said you work with bees?
Yes. Yeah, I'm the administrator of the Beekeepers Guild.
Oh,
There's
nice.
a beekeepers guild?
There is.
So I want y'all to know that my county, my actual like county, was supposed to host a beekeepers guild for the county at 4:30, and I said, you know what, SCA is more important. Oh wait, look, a beekeeper.
Oh, cool.
You can actually
Oh.
buy the hives and the bees right now if you need. They're on sale.
Well, I don't know the first thing about beekeeping, and it was one of those things. I have this patch of yard
If
that
only we had a place to put them.
I have a place to put them. So I have this patch of yard that it doesn't get enough sunlight to actually grow anything. And it's like kind of already sectioned off, and it is about a 10 by 20 area.
Huh.
And it's got a garage, a fence, and then it's like open. And so like nobody goes over there. And I was like, oh, maybe I could put a hive back there.
Huh.
But I
Could
didn't know,
be.
I don't know the first thing about bees, so I wasn't
Right.
sure.
Well, you know what they say, free advice is worth what you pay for it. But in my experience, I have had a lot of issues with small hive beetles infesting my hives when they are in a shady area, and then moving them out into full sun. It didn't eliminate the small hive beetles, but it certainly did cut them down.
Hmm.
Maybe that's more in my area. Your area might be different. I don't know.
I don't know. I just thought about getting a hive out there, but I didn't know the first thing about bees. And I've read every book my library has, and it's still Greek because I'm not a book learner.
Ah, well, that's where a guild really comes in handy. There's lots and lots and lots of videos on YouTube, of course, but those also, again, they're worth what you pay for them.
I know somebody in Bastrop who does bees and bee rescues. He doesn't currently have any hives at the moment.
Our current our current princess in Vindame was at one point active in the Beekeepers Guild. She didn't keep her own hives, but there are several pictures of her in full kit helping someone else out. So and like I said, between the cooking potential for honey and the A&S potential for wax, if the Beekeeping Guild wanted to do some sort of production run, that would not be an unwelcome development. I can say that from both sides of that equation.
Well, yeah, there's so many things you can do with the beeswax. You can, you have body products, candles, all types of fun stuff. And that's for the honey as well.
Oh yeah.
Beeswax token as a site token. That was a little cast design using a soap mold.
Well, one of the things I've discovered, because I'm doing sand casting with metal, I was using Sculpey, which works great, but when it's still soft, it's spongy. It tends to return back to whatever shape you're trying to push it out of when you're sculpting it. I started working with beeswax, and oh my God, the detail and the precision shaping I can do. And when that stuff hardens, it's right up there with a Lego. I'm like, oh damn, we're not losing any shape on this. It cools hard as a rock, and that will make beautiful casts when I get my casting kit put back together. I paid top dollar for the 3-pound block I have, and the way I'm going through it, I'm going to need more.
Yeah, I wish that I could offer a lot of honey and wax coming out of my hives, but unfortunately, I just don't really have a viable supply of either at this time. My hives just haven't been doing too well here the last couple of years.
Nothing's been doing too well. Why should your hives be any more fortunate than the rest of us?
Right?
Well, guys, we have guests over, and I've got to go check on something before court. But like I said, I know a couple of you already reached out to me. Feel free to everyone else send a friend request if you'd like. But it has been an absolute blast. Wilhelm, thank you for hosting this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming.
I honestly still don't know if I was supposed to be here or not, but it was great fun.
Thank you very much
Oh.
for hosting this. I have enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you all for coming and contributing to the conversation. Hope to see you all on Facebook. You can send me a friend request if you want. Darren Mize, DARREN MIZE. Yeah, you can also look on the Kingdom of Anstiora group on Facebook. I did make a post yesterday, I think, plugging this discussion, so you can probably find that on there.
I just sent a friend's request,
Cool. Well, thank you.
and I will see y'all later. Y'all have fun.
Yeah, and
And
if
also
y'all
just-
have questions, oh, I'm sorry, what?
I was going to say I also sent a friend request. So
Oh, great.
see you later.
Yeah, if y'all have questions about the Honey Guild or woodworking, toys and games, that's all kind of in my wheelhouse. So I will definitely be happy to, facilitate whatever I can, or if you just need something, I'll do what I can for you. Thank you.
All right. Well, it sounds like we're shutting down, so I'll go ahead and close out the meeting room and jump over to court, hopefully, which will start in about 10 minutes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.